Welcome back. Section 5.4, we're going to continue on factoring, but today we're going to factor completely. So we're going to put together our factoring into GCF and factoring the trinomial all into one problem. So the first thing we're going to do is factor the GCF, and then we're going to factor that remaining, or the leftovers, that we took out after we took out the GCF. So let's go ahead and look at a problem and see what it's going to look like for us. Let's see, example 1 here, we have 15x squared plus 25x plus 10. So the first thing we want to do is find that GCF. Remember, the GCF is a number or the term that will divide evenly into each of the terms that we have in our polynomial. So 15, 25, and 10, we look at the coefficients first. We can factor out a 5. And if I look at my x squared, my x, and I don't have any x's here, so I remember I cannot take out an x since we don't have an x in that last term. If I take out my 5, I'm left with 3x squared plus 5x plus 2. Now, I'm going to take my leftovers, and I'm going to go ahead and factor those. So I'm going to create my two sets of parentheses. Remember, the first two terms have to multiply to give us the first term of our trinomial. So how do we break up 3x squared? That can be 3x and be an x. My 2, how can I break up 2? Well, that's going to be 1 and a 2, or a -1 and a -2. Notice our middle term here is positive, our last term is positive, so we have to have the same sign, and in order to get them to both be positive, or to add to give a positive, our two factors have to be the positive. So we can eliminate the negative factors. So I'm looking at 1 and 2. Well, where am I going to place the 1 and where am I going to place the 2? I could put the 1 here and the 2 here, or I can put the 2 here and the 1 here. And again, it's a trial and error. As you get to do more of these problems, you kind of see them in your head. We're looking for, when we multiply these two numbers together and these two numbers together, and then add those results, I want to get a 5. So if I put my 2 here and my 1 here, remember they both have to be positive, here I get 3x times 1 gives me 3x, and 2 times x gives me 2x. Adding those together gives me that middle term of 5x. So there's going to be our completely factored form of that trinomial. I'm going to go ahead and get example 2 here. We can go ahead and factor out a 3. 3 goes into all of these, so we get x squared plus 3x minus, what do you got? We got 28, it looks like. Then we're going to go ahead and factor this trinomial. So I'm looking for the first two terms again to give me x squared, so that's going to be x and x. And then I've got a -28 to work with. So my factors of -28 are -7 and 4, 7 and -4, 1 and 28, or 1 and -28, -1 and 28. We got 2 and 14, one's a negative, the other one's a positive. And remember, as we look, we're looking for these two to multiply together, these two multiply together. When we add them, it's got to give us a 3x. So when I add two numbers, one being a positive, one being a negative, I know the larger number has to be positive. So I can eliminate all the ones where the negative is the larger number. Looking for the sum, 7 and -4. That's going to end up giving me a -4x when I multiply the outsides. The insides gives me a positive 7x. Adding those together gives me my 3x. And there we go. Got a couple more examples to look at. 5x squared minus 45. Here I can pull out my 5, my GCF. So I get x squared minus 9 times my 5. Go ahead and look at x squared minus 9. Again, we have x and we have x. We have two terms here. We could put in that middle term as being a 0x. Excuse me. So we're going to multiply the outsides and insides together, add those together. It's got to give me 0 this time. So we're looking at -9 gives us a positive 3 and a -3. And that's going to be our factored form. 6x squared, 10x minus 100. What goes in all three of those? Our GCF is a 2. So we're looking at 3x squared plus 5x minus 50. I'm going to go ahead and set up my two sets of parentheses. We're going to take that 3x squared and break it up into 3x and x. 50, or -50. Again, remember, our first term, our middle term here is positive, so our larger number is going to have to be positive, but we had to work with that 3 as well. So we're going to be careful with that. So we got 5 and negative 10. Actually, if you see it right off the bat, you're pretty much done. And here I see 3 times a 5 gives me 15, and then plus negative 10 gives me a 5. So I can go ahead and put my 5 in there and my 10 in this spot. Oh, I lost my negative. There should be a negative there. So we get a negative 10x and a positive 15x. Add those together gives me that 5x in the middle. Last one, 12x squared plus 6x minus 18. We can pull out a 6 as our GCF. So we get 2x squared plus x minus 3. I'm going to go ahead and set up my 2 sets of parentheses. To break up my 2x squared, I get 2x and x. I got to break up negative 3. So I get negative 3 and 1, or negative 1 and 3. Again, we want to multiply those outsides together, and then multiply the 2 insides together to add to give me a 1x. So if I've got a 3 and a 1 here, make this a negative and a positive. So I've got my 3x, my negative 2x. Adding those together gives me my positive 1x. And that's what we're going to look at when we factor completely today. Good luck!